What's up, guys? It's Terraria with Yak back at you with some more low quality content. Unfortunately, I cannot play Terraria right now because it's having so many issues. I'm here making another low quality video. I'm making tier list of every single vanilla and Calamity boss, and we're gonna be ranking them on 3 different things. Okay, the first one is how challenging they are. Second is how fun the boss fight is, and 3, how cool they look. Alright, so let's jump straight into it. We got 6 different tiers here, S all the way down to F tier. Okay, a lot of people don't include an F tier, but I think an F tier is very important to point out the trash, the atrocities in this game. Okay, now we got mini bosses included. Okay, and I think we also have the event bosses like the moon, the pumpkin moon, and the frost moon. Okay, so let's jump straight into it here. I think they're mostly based on, I think they're all in order of progression, so that makes it a lot easier. So first we got King Slime, the OG vanilla boss. Where does he fall in? I mean, I'll gotta be honest, King Slime really, he's not the worst boss in the game, he's not the best boss. It's kind of a boring boss fight, but it's also the first fight in the game. What do you really expect from it? I think he's a C tier. Alright, we got Desert Scourge. Calamity's first boss they throw at you is a worm boss. I mean, really? I mean, come on. Nobody likes worm bosses. Screw off with the worm bosses. Alright, this one isn't that hard, though. But it's a nice little challenge if you are new to Calamity. I think we could probably go C tier on the Desert Scourge. He's not that fun. Yeah. Eye of Cthulhu. Ooh. The Eye of Cthulhu, it's probably on Death and Master Mode, which is what I play on. It's probably one of the most fun boss fights in the game. Not very challenging, though. Once you get the movements down, it's very easy to just kind of cheese the boss. Like you can literally just move in a straight line and the boss can't hit you in the second phase. So it's really not that challenging, but it's so fun. And the boss looks really good. I like when it opens the mouth. So I think the Eye of Cthulhu is a solid A tier in my opinion. It's lacking, what prevents it from being S tier in my opinion is the lack of a challenge there. But maybe if you play on Infernum, I don't know. I don't play Infernum. It's probably more difficult. Next we got Crabulon. So Crabulon is the boss that is the pre-Hardmode version of Astrum Aureus. He kind of stomps around a lot. He's an optional boss. He's not that difficult. He doesn't even really look that cool. I think I think Crabulon just kind of exists because they needed a boss for the mushroom biome, to be honest, but whatever, I guess. He's probably C tier. Yeah. On to the Eater. Actually, no, screw that. He's A tier because he's got the best boss music in the entire game. He's A tier. Alright, Eater of Worlds, another worm boss. This one's a little bit different though because you can target the segments and that spawns even more worms. Yeah, you thought one worm boss was bad. How about little itty bitty worms coming at you all over the place? Because once you kill a segment, it breaks off and it becomes 2 worms and then it just keeps multiplying from there. Not visually interesting at all really, but it is a decent challenge. However, the next boss, the Brain of Cthulhu, is much more difficult. Pretty much the corruption bosses are a lot easier than the Crimson bosses. I think Eater of Worlds is gonna have to sadly be our first D tier. He's not an F tier because it's still a little bit hard, but he's a little bit boring. He's a very boring boss fight. Brain of Cthulhu is next. Where do we put the Brain of Cthulhu? On Death and Master Mode, he's very challenging. So it is definitely a test of your skill. I kind of like how the boss looks. I mean, it's it's also one of the OG bosses in Terraria. Like when you in vanilla, like you would fight Eye of Cthulhu, and then your next boss would be the Brain of Cthulhu, right? I don't know. I haven't played straight vanilla in so long. And back in the console days, back when I played console, I would play vanilla, obviously. But yeah, so the Brain of Cthulhu, is the boss fight fun though? It can be very frustrating. And the boss fight really doesn't, it's not a very fun boss fight. I think that's what's gonna hold it from being A tier S tier, is because there's a lot of repetitiveness in the boss fight. And I know like most of these there's a lot of repetitiveness in Terraria in general, but this boss really takes it to the extreme a little bit. Yeah. Next up is Hive Mind. This is basically Calamity's version of the Brain of Cthulhu. This is F tier. This boss is F tier. This boss, the only thing it has going for it is that it is not that easy, but it's really not. It's not even close to being somewhat hard. Like it's not even close. Like it is definitely in the easier half of the bosses in Calamity mod. The boss is not very fun because there's a lot of annoyances. The fact that he teleports around really slowly and he'll spawn on top of the player. And he's also just like visually uninteresting. And it's again, I said it's Calamity's version of Brain of Cthulhu, so it's not really a new idea. I mean, it really is just Calamity's version of the Brain of Cthulhu. That's it. But yeah, Hive Mind is F tier. Next is the Perforators. They are a decent challenge. I don't think they're as hard as the Brain of Cthulhu. They look kind of visually cool, I guess you could say. It's just the fact that they're worm bosses really holds them back, in my opinion. I just don't like worm bosses, really. I really don't. I think the Perforators are a solid B tier because they are a nice challenge. Next up is the Queen Bee, another optional boss fight. Queen Bee is interesting because you can fight the Queen Bee. A lot of people fight the Queen Bee underground, but I fight Queen Bee above ground, and it's very different boss fights. The Queen Bee is a lot more difficult when you fight her in the hive, but above ground the fight becomes a lot easier. I like the design of having the bee, the whole bee scheme. I don't know what word I was looking for there, but yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. I like the items you get from it. There's a lot of variety from the items you get from, like the bee cloak or whatever you call it, the honeycomb, the bee summoner armor. I think the Queen Bee is kind of slept on a little bit. I'll put the Queen Bee in B tier. Skeletron is up next, one of the most infamous Terraria bosses. I really like Skeletron. I think it's probably one of the most fun boss fights in the game. Is it challenging though? I don't really know. I mean, it's definitely not up there top 10 or top 20 hardest. But he's definitely in the above the 50. He's definitely above 50%. Like, he's harder than the average, if that makes sense. But Skeletron, he's really fun though, and how in death mode, how he resummoned, the arms respawn. So I think Skeletron belongs in the A tier. What holds him back from being S tier, in my opinion, is that he's just not that difficult, in my opinion. Deerclops. Where do I put Deerclops? I don't really know what to say about Deerclops, to be honest, because he's kind of like a meme boss, and he's not really meant to. He wasn't really put in the game to be that challenging, and death mode really doesn't. The new things they added to him in death mode don't really make him that much more challenging. there's a lot of like funny items that drop from him, but other than that, I mean, I don't know. He's gonna have to go in C tier, I guess. I think that's where he belongs. Slime God. This is an interesting one. I've always liked the idea of having the corruption and the crimson combined in one boss. I'm just not sure that Slime God was the right interpretation of that. Maybe I sound stupid, but I end up finding that Slime God had a lot of missed potential, because especially in one of the most recent updates, they got rid of the part at the end of the boss fight where you actually fight Slime God. Now Slime God just kind of goes between the two evil slimes, if that makes any sense. But if you ever fought Slime God before one of the latest updates, when you killed both of the big slimes, you actually fought Slime God himself. So now it kind of makes a lot less sense, and I would in a future update, I would really love for them to add it back where you actually fight Slime God, because it made the fight at least a little more interesting. What holds this boss back is that it has a lot of missed potential. C tier, in my opinion. Wall of Flesh. This is going to be the most controversial one, guys. F tier. Wall of Flesh goes in the F tier because of the amount of work that has to go into fighting this boss. The only thing that you could say, in my opinion, you can maybe up it to D tier, is that it is a very, very tough boss fight. But that is only because of the amount of effort you have to put in to make a good arena for this boss. The fact that I don't like the fact that you have to fight him in a very claustrophobic environment, which is the underworld. There's such little vertical movement there, and the fact that the boss is a vertical wall is not good. And the fact that he goes from one side of the screen to the other means you're forced to move in one way. You forcing the player to make certain movements, or forcing a player from making different movements. Like, I love bosses. I prefer bosses that give you the freedom of movement, and you'll notice the pattern further down the line. Like, there will be some bosses in S tier that will make a lot of sense from what I'm saying. But this boss is just, it's got to be my least favorite boss in the game. It's not even visually interesting. In my opinion, if the Wall of Flesh could be deleted from the game and replaced with something new, I would totally be up for that. But enough said, really, on the Wall of Flesh. I don't need to really say anymore. I probably pissed you off enough. Queen Slime is up next. Okay, so Queen Slime is interesting. I feel like for being a hollowed boss, she's kind of uninteresting. Or a little bit boring. There's not many cool sound effects or anything. The only thing different is that she summons more projectiles than King Slime, and she can fly. But I feel like it's wrong to put her anywhere different than her counterpart King Slime, because it's just the hard mode version of King Slime. That's it. Cryogen. Ooh, Cryogen. Ooh, probably one of the coolest boss fights in the game. He's got probably one of the most unique AIs. And there's a lot of different moving parts in his boss fight. There's he'll summon projectiles. He's also got a temporary shield periodically. He'll also summon sentries that will shoot projectiles. And his AI actually changes throughout the boss fight so much. Where do I put Cryogen? It's at least A tier. Where do I put him? I don't know that he belongs in S tier because the boss fight, I don't really know that it's that fun. He's kind of like just an inherently boring boss, but like he's kind of cool. I don't know how to explain it though. I think A tier is okay. When I look at it, like I don't really think he's above like the Eye of Cthulhu. And by the way, I'm not ranking them in the tiers, so like I'm not saying the Eye of Cthulhu is better than Skeletron. They're all in the same tier, so they're all the same basically. But yeah, I think Cryogen is good in A tier. Next up we got the twins, and I'm gonna rank them on the same tier. I'm not gonna rank them individually because I think that's only fair. They're the same boss fight. The twins, ooh. Oh, that's cringe. I shouldn't do that anymore. The twins are S tier. One of the most fun boss fights is, it's like if you took Eye of Cthulhu and it's like they took Eye of Cthulhu and they made a perfect, more difficult version of that boss. Adding first of all, adding the two bosses really it adds for a very dynamic and just a very different boss fight that you don't get with many other bosses. I mean, how many other boss fights are you fighting two bosses at once? I personally think that that's cool. Fighting two bosses at once is cool, in my opinion. It's fun, it's cool, and it's challenging. They're the easiest of the mech bosses, and technically you can fight any of the mech bosses in any order, but they are meant to be fought as your first mech boss, so I think they're very balanced for that, in my opinion. So yeah, definitely a solid S tier, in my opinion. Aquatic Scourge, another worm boss. The hard mode version of Desert Scourge. I think he's actually definitely one of the better worm bosses in the game. He's not that frustrating to fight against. The only time it becomes frustrating is in the late second phase. He will start to summon just so many projectiles that just weaving out and in between them is sometimes becomes almost impossible. I think he's definitely more fun than Desert Scourge, so I'll put him in the B tier. Destroyer. Oh man. Why did Calamity think that it was a good idea to put two worm bosses in a row? Like, you fight Aquatic Scourge and then you fight the Destroyer. It's so weird. The Destroyer is interesting. The Destroyer is actually a tough challenge, and he used to be a lot more difficult because the probes did not drop hearts. But now they do in death mode. So he has been made a lot easier, in my opinion. And the fact that once you beat Aquatic Scourge, you can actually access a lot of more piercing weapons that you could not. Like on Mage, you can get the Slithering Eels, which is really good for this boss fight. Let me just take a quick sip here. Yeah, so... But he is definitely a challenge. I will say that. And this is one of the first worm bosses. Actually, I would say this is the first worm boss where the head damage is actually a factor in the boss fight. If you get hit in the head in this boss fight, you significantly lower your chances of winning. It does a lot of damage. It's a tough fight. It's an interesting fight in the fact that when you take out each segment, the probes spawn, and it doesn't separate, like the segments don't separate like the Eater of Worlds. I'll actually put it on the same tier as Aquatic Scourge, but I would say Aquatic Scourge is probably a more fun boss fight though. Brimstone Elemental, ooh. I feel like Brimstone Elemental used to be a lot more difficult, but now she's not. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I've just gotten better or something. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a boring boss fight in my opinion. She moves slowly. Her projectiles just are inherently boring. I'm not a huge fan of the color red, but you know, that's subjective. Maybe you really like this boss fight it's another optional boss fight that, like, sometimes in playthroughs I would just skip fighting this boss because there's no point. She doesn't drop many good weapons, in my opinion. Maybe if you're true melee, you can use the Brim Lance, but that's about it. I mean, you know, C tier is all I can do. I don't want to put her in D tier because I feel like she's not a D tier boss, in my opinion. You know, it can actually be a good challenge, but, you know, whatever. Skeletron Prime, a good challenge. This boss is very challenging. And it's definitely meant to be your third mech boss. That is how he's balanced in death mode. Yeah, it's a challenging, and it's a good hard take on Skeletron, but in hard mode. The fact that he still keeps the 4 arms, but all of the arms actually do something different. Like, you have the 2 ranged arms and the 2 melee arms, but one of the ranged arms is the laser and the other one is the explosive cannon. It just makes the fight that much more interesting. You know, it's not just kind of like a one-dimensional boss fight. There's actually, like, strategy on which arm you should be aiming for first. You know what I mean? But once the arms get taken down, it's kind of just Skeletron all over again. The head spins around, and that part of the boss fight is kind of boring, in my opinion. You know, I honestly will say he probably deserves B tier, because I really think Skeletron is more iconic, is a more fun boss fight. I apologize if you can hear my heater, by the way. If it's not on, my room will be ice cold. I'm really sorry. I have to have it on, or I wouldn't be able to record at all. Next up is Calamitous Clone, formerly known as Calamitous, but then they changed it to Calamitous Clone. Whatever. I think the name is stupid now, but whatever. Ooh. I think this is Calamity's first S tier boss. Because this is one of those bosses that just has everything, and it will test your skill in ways that, if you are new to Calamity mod, you've never seen before. And now, before they added the bullet hell, this boss would probably be in A tier. But when they added the bullet hell, the bullet hell adds this just, I don't even know what the word is, but, you know, it's another way to test a player's skill that's not seen in vanilla, really. It's not. The fact that the boss goes invincible, and you're just, as the player, you're forced to dodge. That's all you can do during that stage. So, especially if you're new to Calamity mod, this will really test your skill. And the boss fight is just really fun. It's a very interesting boss fight. The boss has a lot of moves, and it also summons the brothers, and those are interesting in their own right. Yeah, that's all I'll say. Calamitous Clone is an S tier boss. Plantera, on the other hand, who is meant to be fought at the same time, even though I would always fight Plantera after Calamitous. Plantera is probably C tier, in my opinion. Just overall, one of the most boring bosses in the game. I mean, just uninteresting. There's nothing flashy about Plantera. She's very difficult, though. I will say that. Much more difficult than Calamitous Clone. But overall, it's not a fun boss fight because, again, you're confined to a small space underground. And maybe some people might like that just because it gives you that extra challenge. But in my opinion, you can make challenging boss fights and not restrict the player's movement. But yeah, Plantera is a C tier, maybe even borderline D tier, in my opinion. But anyways, Anahita and Leviathan. Now I'm going to rank them again on the same tier as I did with the twins because they are the same boss fight. These are S tier bosses. Both are S tier bosses. They are so well designed. They're so interesting. And the fact that it's another one where you're fighting two bosses in one, it's so cool and it's so fun. I don't even know how to explain it, but this has long been one of my favorite bosses in Calamity mod. You know, and they're both incredibly dynamic, and the fact that, you know, in death mode, like in parts of the boss fight, you're only fighting one, and then, you know, the next minute both of them are coming at you, and you gotta be quick to follow one boss, and then, oh wait, Leviathan, yeah, he's coming back now, and it's all of that, you know, really makes for quite an enjoyable experience in my opinion. You know, on death mode, the Anahita is definitely more challenging than Leviathan. So there is that little bit of a mismatch there, but overall it's very fun. What is this boss? Oh, Astrum Deus, or Astrum Aureus. It's basically just hard mode Crabulon. Like I said earlier, he's very frustrating. I mean, there's a lot of times where just his hitbox is weird, and he's so tanky. He has like 300,000 hit points, and he's not even a worm boss. I mean, that to me is a bit insane. He's D tier in my opinion. He's uninteresting. I'm not a huge fan of the astral biome, guys. I'm just not. I think I honestly think it's an unnecessary biome that they added. I would have liked something cooler in my opinion, but of course I'm just being weird, and I know you guys are gonna hate on me for that, but that's my take. Astrum Aureus is not that interesting. It's a copy and paste of Crabulon put into hard mode. That's all it is. Next up we got Golem. Ooh, Golem is challenging. He's very challenging. He's very difficult. Probably maybe in the top 10 hardest bosses. But he's one of the quickest boss fights too. Like, once you summon him, you know, it's before you know it, the fight is over with. He doesn't have that many hit points. But really it's the second or the third stage, when the head separates from the body, is really when the difficulty ramps up. This is one of the few boss fights where when you're constricting the player's movement, I actually do enjoy this boss fight, because the boss is set up for that. Like, before, like, the Wall of Flesh is not a boss that is set up to be fought. Like, to me, it wasn't designed to be fought in a really confined space, but this boss is. The Golem is A tier in my opinion. What holds it back, it's a very quick boss fight. I honestly think that's the only thing holding it back from S tier in my opinion. Plaguebringer Goliath, it's Calamity's version of Queen Bee, but I actually think it is interesting boss fight. It adds a lot of new elements, like the nuke barrage, I think is interesting, and also the boss doesn't just dash horizontally, also can dash from the it can also do angled dashes from like the bottom of your screen. I'll put it on the same tier as Queen Bee because it just feels wrong to put it anywhere else. Not that challenging of a boss fight, really. Probably below average in terms of difficulty. But Empress of Light is next. Where do I put Empress of Light? I don't really know, to be honest. It's a very tough boss fight. I think it's a very visually cool looking boss. The fact that, you know, there's a lot of colors on your screen, and you're supposed to be fighting it at night too. The colors kind of stand out a little bit more. And the attacks are something that you don't really see on any other boss, like the lances, and how, especially on death mode, it adds another version of the lances where like they kind of just come in a line across your screen. I really like that actually. I'll put it in B. I'll put her in B tier.
Because the boss fight just kind of lacks a little bit of fun, in my opinion. It's a very repetitive boss fight. I think that's really what holds it back, in my opinion. You're dodging the same attacks way too often, over and over again. Duke Fishron, ooh, everybody's favorite boss, one of the most challenging bosses in Terraria, or in the Calamity mod. On Death Mode, this is easily a top 5 hardest boss, easily, and it's all because of that phase 3 where he goes invisible and he can teleport to the player. But to me, that part is very enjoyable. Duke Fishron is S tier. I also just really like the design. I like the pigron mixed with water, and mixed with fish. I really like that design. I love the Sharknadoes. I think that's cool as well. The drops that he has are both iconic and some of the best drops in the game. Like I'll start listing them off right now. You got the Tsunami, the Flairon, the Fishron Wings, the Briny Baron, the Razorblade Typhoon. I said the Tsunami already. The Duke Decapitator. That's a funny weapon. But yeah, this is easily an S tier boss. It's not very frustrating. I think people will just get frustrated on it because it's so difficult. But I've basically mastered this boss fight. It's one of the most fun for me. That might sound privileged because I don't have much of a problem taking down this boss anymore, but whatever. Next up is Ravager. Like, purely from visual, purely on his visuals, he's probably F tier. Like, it's just, he's such a boring looking boss. The brown and the, I don't even know, he's supposed to be made of rocks, I guess. I don't really know. But whenever I think of rocks, I think of geology, and geology is just so boring. So I don't want to put him in F tier, but he's D tier, in my opinion. And he's not really that challenging anyways, so he lacks that too. Lunatic Cultist? This one is... Lunatic Cultist probably has the best design, or the best sprite, out of any boss ever created. I mean, there could be some boss out there I've never seen, but out of all the bosses that I've fought in vanilla and modded Terraria, he has the best design, in my opinion. He looks so cool. He's a decent challenge. The problem is that there's certain classes that can just cheese the hell out of him. One of them is melee, because you can just use the Briny Baron, and the other one is Summoner, because your summons will just auto aim, and it's so easy. But he's really fun though, because he kind of takes the boss fight to the air. You have to really maneuver throughout his attacks. He's more of like a glass cannon type boss, because he doesn't have many hit points, but his attacks deal a lot of damage. I think his visual looks carry him to an A tier, in my opinion. Next up, we got Astrum Deus. Oh my god. Oh my god. Well, what's better than one worm boss? Let's have 2 worm bosses in the same fight. Yeah, that FabSoul thought that was a good idea. So, I don't know. But I feel like I don't want to be too harsh, because actually I do. This boss is D tier. Astra Gildan. This is from the Catalyst mod. I'm gonna be honest, I don't play on the Catalyst mod, but I've only maybe fought this boss once, and it's supposed to be like one of the hardest boss. It's supposed to be like the hardest boss Calamity has ever made. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm put it F tier, but I'm not putting it F tier because I think it's bad. I'm just putting it there because I don't know. I'm not sure why the pillars are there. I'll just put those in F tier, I guess, because they're not bosses, really. They're just... I don't even know. They're just an event. Moon Lord. Ooh. Ooh. One of the most iconic bosses. Ugh. Ooh. He is very challenging. He looks cool. And it's a fun boss. It's a fun boss fight. I don't have much to say. I mean, I think without the Death Ray, it'd probably be just one of the easiest boss fights of all time. But the Death Ray does add that bit of kind of unease. I don't know if that's the right word, but or paranoia that at any moment you might just get insta killed. The Death Ray doesn't insta kill, but it kind of gives that feeling. And the fact that the boss fight is really dynamic as well, because you have there's only certain areas that you can damage him at certain times because they'll close up, especially the eye will only open at certain times. I really like this. It's not an S tier boss fight in my opinion, but it is an A tier boss fight. This is the Profane Guardians, D tier. They're so uninteresting, and they're just like the gateway to get to Providence. In my opinion, I don't even see the reason for them in the game. Like, why not just make the Providence? Why not just delete them and then you can just fight Providence? But whatever. You have to fight them in order to fight Providence, so, they are required to progress, basically. Next up is Dragon Folly, or Bumbleburb. He's kind of like Yaren in a way. But also, he's kind of like Yaren if they mix Yaren with Queen Bee. It's an interesting take. But he's kind of just a boring boss. Not that interesting, but there's some very useful drops, like there's a ranger accessory. And then there's that true melee weapon that he drops as well. And I think there's a sword, a melee sword that he drops. The sword explosion, I think, is the name. But that sword's not that good in my opinion. I think he's C tier. He's an average boss. It's definitely a forgettable boss fight. Not that interesting. Providence, ooh, one of Calamity's best designed bosses in my opinion, or best designed boss fights. I think the fact that you can fight him in several different biomes, and he gives drops, excuse me, it's she, because it's the Profane Goddess. And she gives different drops based on what biome you fight her in, is really cool in my opinion. And the fact that you don't take contact damage from the boss, it makes the fight a lot easier, but it makes the fight fun, and it also is just like, it's what separates the boss from any other boss. It makes the fight that much different and cool. Oh man, is it S or A tier? Ooh. I don't know that I can... Oh, is it S tier? I think it might be S tier. Providence... Yeah, S tier. Providence is S tier. Whoa, what am I doing there? Providence is S tier. Yep. One of the best designed Calamity bosses, in my opinion. Really awesome. Astrum... Or no, this is Stormweaver. Stormweaver. I hate the Sentinels, man. They're so stupid. They're so boring. Like, all three of these guys are so boring. But Stormweaver is probably the most interesting of them. I'll put Stormweaver in D. He's a worm boss, but he's very dynamic though. There's so he starts out the fight, you can only damage the tail until 80%. And then the rest of the fight you can damage the body. But the problem is, on some classes you can just cheese the boss. Like, so if you're playing mage, you can just use the last prism and you basically one-shot the boss, and it's so easy. But yeah. The next two, they're F tier in my opinion. Ceaseless Void and Cygnus. Cygnus is so easy. He's probably top 10 easiest bosses in the Calamity mod. And Ceaseless Void, while he's a good challenge, the fact that you're forced to fight him in the dungeon, and then the boss right after this, Poltergeist, you also fight in the dungeon. Why so many dungeon bosses in a row too? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, Calamity needs to space them out. Like, Ceaseless Void should be like Pre-Hardmode or something. I don't know what I'm saying, but you should not have two dungeon bosses in a row. And I'm putting this on Ceaseless Void because he's just not interesting in my opinion. But he is a nice challenge though. That's the only thing he has going for him. Apologize for the fart. But next up we got Poltergeist, which is Calamity's version of Plantera. I don't know what my opinion is on Poltergeist. He's interesting because the bigger your arena, so like Poltergeist speed actually is proportionate to your arena size. So building a bigger arena is not actually always the better thing to do for Poltergeist. And the fact that he also spawns the second Phantoplasm later on, which is just like the second version of him, it's kind of like you're fighting two bosses, but also not really, because they do the same thing. And the second one, the Phantoplasm that he spawns is more, it's closer to more like the Golem head or the Ravager head that breaks off at the end of those fights. He's C tier. He's an average boss. Kind of forgettable in my opinion. Old Duke. Ooh, man, Old Duke. I'm about to say something really controversial right now. Old Duke might be one of the most pointless bosses that's ever been created in Calamity mod. You don't need to fight this guy. Like, his drops are not that good. Like, if you just fight Poltergeist, you'll be ready for Devourer of Gods. Like, you do not need to fight Old Duke. You just don't. But he's frustrating too, because he's like the harder version of Old Duke. Yeah, man, I don't know what to say. And the fact that you're forced to fight him at the end of the Acid Rain is also annoying too, because the Acid Rain 3 will spawn those nuclear terrors, and if you're fighting them at the same time, oh gosh, that's so annoying. Yeah, I think it's a D tier boss because he's so forgettable in my opinion, and you don't need his gear at all. Devourer of Gods, probably the best worm boss in all of Vanilla and Calamity. I really dislike. He's very challenging. It's another boss that's probably the top 5. No, top 5. Yeah, probably top 5 most difficult bosses in the Calamity mod. There's one thing that I think holds him back, and it's that lasers in the second phase where they're just like the geometry lasers where they all come in a line. I think that is so stupid. I hate that part in that boss fight. It's so dumb. I don't know why they chose to do that. Like, you could have added something interesting, but no, you decided to add lasers that just shoot in a line and they spawn on the side of your screen. That part of the boss fight really holds it back in my opinion. And the fact that you can just dodge them with a Rod of Discord, it's like it ruins the challenge for that, and it's just a stupid phase anyways. B tier. I cannot put a worm boss in A tier. I just can't. I cannot do it. I'm sorry. I hate worm bosses. Yaren, S tier. Best boss ever created. Design is awesome. The fight is so fun. Just your movement as a player, you're not restricted in any way, shape, or form. You can fly, and like this boss fight will make use of your entire arena. Yaren teleports. He flies all around. It is a nice test of dodging and attacking at the same time. This boss, although Supreme Calamitous is more of the mascot of the Calamity mod, Yaren to me is the heart of the Calamity mod. He's the best boss that FabSoul has ever created. And that's enough said. Enough said on Yaren. That's my take. Next up, we got Drayden. Now, this one is a little bit different because I know earlier I said that for boss fights that actually have two bosses, I would rank them on the same tier. But this boss fight is a little bit different. It's more like 3 different bosses in one. I'll rank the eyes on the same tier, but I will not be ranking the other ones on the same tier unless I actually feel they are on the same tier, if that makes any sense. First, we start with Thanatos. I mean, Thanatos is really easy. And I question why Calamity chose to put a worm boss as the third one. There's so many worm bosses in the game already. And the fact that Devourer of Gods, you pretty much just fought him before Yaren. Why did Calamity choose to add a worm boss as one of Drayden's mechs? I don't understand that at all. I'm sorry, I don't keep up with the lore or anything either. I don't know, there's some explanation there. I don't like Thanatos, and he's so easy compared to the other two. Like, if you just deleted Thanatos, the fight would still be just as difficult because he doesn't really make an impact at all. And his third phase is actually easier than his first phases. It's so weird. So yeah, he's C tier in my opinion because since it is Drayden, it still is kind of challenging, but he's by far the easiest of all 3 mech bosses. Ares, Ares is probably A tier in my opinion. He's very challenging. He's definitely the hardest mech boss. And the fact that the Murasama got a nerf now to where it does not reach far enough to reach his arm, it really makes true melee fights impossible. You cannot beat, as far as I know now, you can actually not beat the Exomechs now as true melee because of the Murasama nerf. But just the fact that the Murasama can no longer touch Ares is a huge downside. And it makes the boss fight a little bit more difficult in my opinion. And his second phase is really challenging. It's almost impossible not to take damage because those lasers keep spinning and spinning. And if you get stuck, like if you get stuck in the ground and that phase happens, you might as well just call it that your run is over because you won't be able to move around. Because then if you move through the boss, then you'll take damage there too. So yeah. Next up we got the eyes. The eyes are really cool. I don't know that I like how they just stay on the side of your screen. Or maybe I do like that. I don't know. I guess it wouldn't really make any sense if they didn't stay on the side of your screen. But like, you can just hold a weapon there on the side of your screen. Like, just hold your mouse on the side of your screen and you'll be damaging them all the time. Yeah, they're probably B tier in my opinion. They're way more challenging than the worm Thanatos, but they're a lot easier than Ares. Yeah, that's it really. Supreme Calamitous. You know, The mascot of Calamity mod. Should it be S tier? No. Not an S tier boss fight. Because of one factor that holds it back. And it's the fact that you are confined to a small box. And especially and as you up the difficulty on Revengeance and Death mode, the box becomes even smaller. So you're confined to an even smaller space. Yeah, it's just, that is the one thing holding it back. Otherwise, the boss fight is really fun. It really is. And there's so many different moving parts. You got the balls that spawn up top with the Sepulchre worm. That's the first phase. Then you also got the moons, and then the bullet hells. The boss just goes in and out of these phases. You got the brothers come back. Yeah, but that's just the one thing holding it back. It's like the boss fight, or the boss itself is not repetitive. It's always coming out with new moves. But the player's movements are actually very repetitive. You actually just kind of fly up and down, basically, in the arena. You fly up, then you float back down, and you'll dodge almost every attack from the boss. You know, it's that part does hold it back, in my opinion. But yeah, now I'm pretty much just gonna quick rank all of these mini bosses. This is the Eidolon. Wait, I wonder why the Reaver Shark is on here. But I think this is meant to be the adult Eidolon worm, I think. I don't know where to rank this. I'll put it in C tier, or I'll put it in B tier because it's without a doubt the most challenging, the hardest boss in the Calamity mod, but it's not really supposed to be part of like your traditional run. It's more just like a meme boss. Like if you use a Rod of Discord in the Abyss, it will summon the adult Eidolon worm. That's really it. There's nothing much to say. And the weapons it drops are kind of memey as well. Giant Clam. Giant Clam's actually cool. B tier, I think. Flying Dutchman, irrelevant. Is that Old One's Army? Ooh, no. Who does Old One's Army, bro? Betsy, I'll put in D tier because at least it's like a full boss. Morning Wood. Oh, we all love a Morning Wood, huh? Pumpkin King, B tier. What's this guy's name? Everscream, A tier. Santa, F tier. I hate that boss so much. Ice Queen, C tier. Great Sand Shark, C tier. Martian Saucer. I don't really like this event, and the fact that you're forced to do this event to get certain items, especially late game, like to make the UFO summon for Summoner, you do this event. D tier. Cragmaw Mire, C? I don't really know that I remember. What is this? I don't know what that is. I feel like I should know that. But this is the Nuclear Terror, F tier, one of the most annoying mini bosses in the game. I don't know what that boss is. I'm forgetting what that is. I should know, but whatever. Anyways, here's the tier list, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to get more Terraria videos out. The problem is that I'm having a huge issue right now. I did a post. I posted like a few hours ago that I'm having trouble in my world right now summoning the Moon Lord. Yeah, it's all a huge thing. I'm gonna have a video out tomorrow explaining what's all going on. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day.